And the chapter begins. They stopped disciples that this guy has not heard, who had captured the imagination of the people. They didn't recognize Jesus' very presence in times of distress. Last year, sometimes it's been very hard to see God's action. We are blind is working. How God with the disciples' house, but they invite him in to stay because the day is ending. Jesus only enters with invitation. Even now, we must invite Jesus into our lives. So the three of them sit down to dinner, and Jesus takes bread, and he blesses it, breaks it, and gives it to the disciples. It is at that moment that they recognize who Jesus is. And then he vanishes from sight. Very helpful for a question afterward, right? But they are changed. The disciples are renewed and completely undone by their encounter with the risen Lord. They have energy now to leave and make the 7-mile trek back to Jerusalem in the dark, even though it's dangerous. On the way to Emmaus, they were arguing. On the way back to Jerusalem, they have one message and one focus. They say to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us when he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" The witness of the women at the tomb has become their witness too. Easter has come to these two disciples who didn't have hope and now are filled with the joy of the risen Christ. So immediately they find the other disciples and they share what happened on the road, that they knew Jesus in the breaking of the bread. And they were all sharing this remarkable story that Jesus, who was crucified, was alive. And I can just imagine them in the room, huddled together because they're still afraid of the authorities, huddled together, speaking excitedly in hushed tones, talking it over with each other, each adding their bit to the story. And then what happened? And then, oh, and I heard, and then this happened, and I experienced this. Ooh. So exciting. So scary. What the heck? Can you say that from the pulpit? And this is where our reading begins. While they were talking about this, Jesus himself stood among the disciples and said to them, "Peace be with you." Can you imagine their surprise and their terror? There they are speculating about what has happened, and then Jesus is standing there proclaiming peace. As someone who startles easily, I can just hear their terrified exclamations. And then Jesus said to them, "Why are you afraid? Why do doubts arise in your hearts?" Well, fear is a natural human response. But Jesus offers peace in an uncertain world. Jesus meets his disciples where they are. He invites them to touch and see that he is real. He eats fish, showing again he's not a ghost. He's really alive. And the passage says, while in their joy, they were disbelieving and still wondering. Isn't that how we live our lives often? Overjoyed with the wonder of God, our Creator and Redeemer, and yet disbelieving and wondering all at the same time? But Jesus encourages them to move beyond fear to believe, to be transformed. Jesus again opens the scriptures to them, reminding them that all that the law and the prophets have been fulfilled in Jesus. Jesus taught and commissioned his disciples to go and share the story of God's redemption for the world. He says the Messiah is to suffer, to rise from the dead on the third day, that repentance and forgiveness of sins is to be proclaimed in his name to all nations, beginning from Jerusalem. And then, just in case they didn't quite get it, he added, "Oh, and you are witness to these things." What? Surely no. But I proclaim to you, as Jesus proclaimed to those disciples, we also are witnesses of Jesus. Jesus makes himself known to us in large and small ways. A note from a friend that says just the thing we needed to hear, or financial help that comes just in time. May we have eyes to see and ears to hear and recognize him and give thanks. As people of faith, we are to be witnesses to Christ's presence among us in our words and in our deeds. We don't have to fear. Jesus meets us where we are, on the road or safe at home, even when we're struggling to believe. It's when our hearts are broken and our dreams are dashed that Jesus comes to us and makes himself known. And when we invite Jesus into our lives, when we host Jesus, the most astounding things can happen. Hospitality becomes the doorway to grace. We recognize Jesus when we welcome the stranger, not out of sympathy, not because we have to, but out of love and joy. We will find those who started out as strangers become beloved friends. We form relationships with depth, grounded in hope and forgiveness. These relationships will endure. By sharing our hope and joy in the risen Lord, even when it's scary. It's gonna be scary. Do it anyway. It transforms the world. May you open the door of your heart to let the peace of Christ enfold you and dispel your fear. May the life-giving Spirit fill you with courage and hope. May you see the stranger as friend and offer an invitation to participate in God's extravagant abundance. May you know the forgiving grace and love of Jesus. The story is too wonderful not to share. Jesus is alive and renews our life. We are transformed.